Okay, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Kara. Good afternoon, everyone. I will now call the hearing to order. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. As directed by Manitoba Health, we're requesting people avoid close contact, that is within 2 meters, and with anyone showing symptoms of a respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing. If you are experiencing flu-like symptoms, we are requesting that you excuse yourself from this room. And Kara, just to confirm, there's nobody waiting on Zoom?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay, so I won't read that. Okay. Thank you. This afternoon, the panel consists of myself, Mr. Hutchings. My fellow panel members will be Ms. Rempel and Mr. Moretsky. Our recording secretary today will be Ms. Balshaw. And representing the Assessment and Taxation Department today, we will have Ms. Wright. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by this Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing today and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with this Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following their swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions by the appellant first, and then the panel members, and then the appellant's testimony, followed by questioning by the assessor first, and then the panel members again. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions based on evidence presented here today. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. And can everybody please make sure that their cell phones are on complete silence before we begin the hearing? Okay. Kara, could you swear in the assessor? And I guess the first property on the docket today is going to be 285 Beverly Street, unit number 1. Could you please swear in both parties?
For the record, please state your name. Right? Do you affirm the evidence will present today's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please state.
Westfall.
And do you affirm the evidence will present today's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the property that the assessors submitted is 285 Beverly Street. I'm looking on the docket, Kara, and I've got kind of small printing, but is that the address listed on file number 12?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I thought it was 286. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we are dealing with a 2021 realty appeal for 285 Beverly Street, unit number 1. Ms. Wright, when you are ready, please.
Okay, thank you. The subject property is roll number 13099071875. This is unit number 1 at 285 Beverly Street. 285 Beverly is a 4-unit garden-style condo building located in the St. Matthews neighborhood. It was built in 2019. Unit number 1 is 820 square feet, has 2 bedrooms, 1 full bathroom, central air conditioning, no fireplace, and a patio. The 2021 assessment for this property is $233,000, which is $284.15 per square foot. Since the subject condo complex was just constructed in 2019, I had to look for a different complex to use as comparables for a reference date of April 1st, 2018. So I've selected sales at the condo complex at 54 Maryland Street. In my evidence, I have included a map to show how far apart these two properties are, as well as exterior photos of both buildings. 54 Maryland is a 4-story, 8-unit apartment style condo complex. The 4 comparable properties from that complex I've chosen, the living area ranges from 690 square feet to 820 square feet. 3 of the comparables have 2 bedrooms, except for comparable number 2, which was 1 bedroom. All have 1 full bathroom, central air conditioning, no fireplaces, and comparables 1, 2, and 3 have balconies. The sale prices for these condo units range from $239,200 to $263,275, which gives us a price per square foot of $294.73 to $346.67. So I feel that based on these comparables, the 2021 assessment of the subject property is supported by market evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Mr. Westfall, any questions on the, is it Mr. Westfall?
It is indeed.
Okay, any questions of the assessor's evidence presented so far?
No.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moretsky, any questions of the assessor?
So what month in 2019 was it built or sold?
I don't have the exact month when it was fully completed. Mr. Westfall can likely.
Unit 1, the one that's in question here, was first listed in, and I have that in my package, the listing agreement. The first one was early January of 19.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Westfall.
Oh, one more question, please. I'm just looking on the map, and your comparables are going on the other side of Portage Avenue,
Yes.
to the north side of Portage Avenue, whereas the subject property is quite a bit further south.
Other way around. We're on the north side of Portage,
Oh, yeah,
and the
okay.
comparative is on the south side.
Subject, okay, yeah, I'm the other way around. Yep. North is always at the top of the map. Anyways, so the ones you're comparing to, or the one that the building that you're comparing to is close to Wolseley on the river, correct?
It's in the Wolseley neighborhood, yes, and it's on the corner of Maryland and Wolseley Avenue.
Would you say that could make a difference in the value of the properties in relation to the proximity to the river and the area that it's in is slightly different, or even though they're not that far distance-wise, the areas are actually quite different?
Yeah, and I do believe that would affect the value of the property. That was a limitation that I faced with this condo, is that this subject property is so new. I had to find a condo complex that was somewhat in a similar area. I do recognize that south of Portage Avenue into Wolseley is a different neighborhood and it would affect the market value.
Is that reflected in the amount that you had assessed it at? That factor?
I believe so, yeah. We do consider the neighborhood. The subject is in the St. Matthews neighborhood, which we consider when we are assessing properties.
So you would have assessed this more than if it was near Wolseley? More than $233,000?
Likely. I didn't come up with what it would be assessed at if potentially it was located further south in Wolseley, but.
Okay, no further questions.
Yes,
Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
wondering,
Murphy.
if I'm thinking of the correct location of the Maryland Street property, isn't it right on a corner, right across from a school, Wolseley School? Isn't that where it's located?
It is on the corner. I believe there is the school somewhere along those lines.
Can you tell me of the comparisons that you have listed, is there one that you think is most appropriate as a comparison to the subject property?
That's difficult. I would say, I mean, if we wanted to look at it in terms of size, comparables 1 and 3 are obviously the closest to the subject property. I would assume that they are all likely in fairly similar condition just because all of these units are relatively new. And they are a different style of condo, which does, I recognize that that does complicate things if you're an apartment style condo. So like I said, they're not perfect comparables, but with the sales that we have available to work with, I feel like
I see that you don't have a time-adjusted sale price for your comparisons. Is this subject property a time-adjusted sale price? Are we comparing apples to apples here? I guess is my question.
The 2021 assessment is based on the market value as of April 2018. I chose not to include time adjustments because it was fairly flat. There wasn't much of a difference impacted in the time adjustment. So I chose just to leave it out.
For all of them?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rempel. Okay, so Ms. Wright, I'm just going to look at your page 3, the photos of the subject and the comparisons.
Okay.
So the subject property is, I guess, 3 levels of units. I guess it would appear stacked on top of each other. And at 54 Maryland, is that the same circumstance? Is there only 1 unit per floor? Would you be aware of that, or?
I believe there is more than 1 unit per floor at 54 Maryland.
Okay. Yeah, and we are on the corner of Maryland and Wolseley, so we're kitty corner to the hospital. This is on the comparison is on the northwest corner of Maryland at Wolseley. Hospital would be across the street on the southeast corner, and the school would be on the south side of the subject property. Is that correct? Yeah, okay. I think you stated possibly that the Wolseley neighborhood that you're comparing to would be somewhat superior to the subject property, but your assessment seems to be less per square foot than the comparison. So I guess that's where your adjustment is made. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Okay. And I guess we've got some kind of post-reference sale, obviously, because we're in 2019. And the reason for no time adjustments, is that because in apartments you don't do adjustments? Is that right? Time adjustments, or?
I made the decision with these condo properties, just looking at the sales. When the time adjustment was so slight, I made the decision just to not include it.
Okay.
The actual sale.
Okay. In your professional opinion, I guess you're presenting comparisons in the market that occurred about 10 to 11 months before the reference date of April 1st, 2018. In your opinion, did the market go up a little bit or down, or was it stagnant?
It seems to depend on the complex. And as you can see, so I would make that decision based on the complex I'm reviewing. For this property on Maryland, there were no sales that were closer to the reference date. So it's difficult for me to say because they all occurred within 2 months of 2017. They were all the first time sales to the first owners.
Okay.
And there were no resales before the reference date. So it's difficult to say with that.
Yeah. Okay. Is it fair to say the subject property is kind of an infill build on that?
The subject property, yes.
Beverly Street, yeah, okay.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I was saying, is it fair to say that the subject property is an infill build on Beverly Street? Like new construction in an older neighborhood? Yeah, okay. All right. Those are my only questions. Okay. Mr. Westfall, if you just bear with me, I'm going to pull up your presentation. And did you have any questions arising for the assessor from what the panel had asked?
One, basically, the time adjustment. What is referred to when you're talking about time adjustment and evaluation? I'm not familiar with that term.
So what we look at, because for the 2021 assessment, we have a specific date of April 2018. That's our reference date.
Okay.
So we're looking at the market value as of that date.
Okay.
Now, typically the market changes slightly over time. So because these sales occurred in 2017, if say the market had increased by say 2% between the month of the sale in April 2018, we would adjust that sales price to show how the market had changed over that.
Okay. Between the reference sale time and price you're using and the reference date that new assessment.
Yeah, so essentially saying it would have sold for this on April 1st, 2018.
Fair enough.
Okay, Mr. Westfall, when you are ready, please, your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll just deal directly with the unit itself and any background. We built that building. We did a bunch of infill things, but that's largely beside the point. Regarding the actual unit itself and the comparatives, I think regarding dealing specifically with the unit itself, unit 1, I think we have a couple of things in there regarding the, well, let's deal with the neighborhood. I think there is a valuation difference and a desirability difference between the Wolseley area and the Daniel Mac St. Matthews area. Not just, I've been involved that for a number of years while the project was being done, but that's probably more from an anecdotal perspective from talking to people, seeing the neighborhood, and also knowing that the valuations between Wolseley's a desirable area. St. Matthews, Daniel Mac is, let's call it a little bit more challenged. Okay, so I think that has certainly has an effect on it. Regarding Unit 1 itself, specifically, it's a basement unit. A basement unit is less desirable than units that are above grade, even though if you look at the picture, when we built it, we tried to do our best to actually bring the unit out of the ground as much as we could. However, it is still it's considered a basement unit from the perspective that that's how people look at it. In the backyard, in the back where the bedrooms are, we had to actually tint out the windows or just to afford people privacy in the bedroom. And you can also see from the front there, that's the living room window that's just above the fence line there. So the lack of privacy on a basement unit is certainly a factor regarding desirability. Desirability affects price. It's the smallest unit of all in the buildings, which would also have some type of an effect on it. The other 3 units, units 2, 3, and 4, all have assigned parking spots. Unit 1 does not have a parking spot. Parking spots range roughly from 12 to 15 to upwards of 15 and plus from the valuation for what a parking spot would cost. I've already cited the lack of privacy and that type of thing. And this is also feedback that I've gotten from clients as they've come out to have a look at it. Gee, we like the area, didn't say we like the area. We like the unit and so on, but boy, I'd rather be up on 2, 3, or 4 rather than unit 1 where everybody can look into my window. Parking, like I say, is an issue. I think we can't dismiss the challenge of the neighborhood vis-a-vis Wolseley. Believe me, Wolseley, as we all know, is a desirable part of the infill type of the neighborhood. People that want to live downtown. Wolseley is the whatever you want to call it, the holy grail of living downtown in that type of environment. You know, the trees look the same in St. Daniel Mac and St. Matthews versus as they do in Wolseley, but that's about the only thing that looks relatively the same. There are a number of challenges, and that's not just in that. You know, I think you've got a bigger mix of home ownership versus rental, which is a factor. I can tell you from having built the building and been there in the neighborhood on the ground over the course of several years, that it wasn't unusual to arrive in the morning and find needles thrown over the construction stone fence there and have to clean the site up in the morning when I got on site. Got broken into twice. But again, you know, I'm probably not the only one that's ever been broken into, and certainly in that area there. That having been said, there is some hope for the neighborhood, and you can also tell going down the streets in there that there's a number of homes that are very nicely kept. And hopefully within the next 15 to 20 years, that area will become the new Wolseley. But as of right now, it's not there. Regarding the saleability of the unit. So I think as per my documents that I supplied there, I first put the unit on the market to sell in January of 2019. And we actually put it on the market for I think it was 224.5. So that was what we first listed it at. That was given the advice from the agent and what the market and the neighborhood could bear. Believe me, and when we did our original business plan to try to set up for the building of this particular infill property, we were looking at figures probably much closer to what the assessor has indicated here. It's sad to say that that did not materialize. So without whining too much about the beating we took on the building, you know, reality is the reality of it. So we listed it originally at 224.5. Then we ended up dropping it after 3 months to 219.5. And then we dropped it again in the fall to 214.5, I believe it was. And we did one more drop, and I was trying to find the documentation on this, but I couldn't. We actually dropped it to 209.5. And then that was a listing that expired at the end of 2019. I think it was early December 2019 when that listing expired. And again, no takers on it. We went in there. Of course, COVID took a bit of a run at us this spring, as it did with just about everything around the city. When we finally got back onto the market here, we actually had a change of ownership on the property effective the early part of April of 2020, and it changed ownership and for a valuation of 199.5, and that would have been in April of 2020. The subject property was again put on the market here back in the spring here, or I'm sorry, in August, and it was through that we went back on the market for 189.9, and we managed to, didn't have a lot of takers, but we managed to get a deal at 185. And so after being on the market for almost 2 years, we had to drop our price to effect a sale from 224.5 down to 180. It says 189.9, but the actual sale price is 185. So so that's the sad litany, the sad story of the unit itself regarding pricing, and that in and of itself, I mean, I'd like to say, I built the building, from the quality of the building, from what's there, I'd like to think it's worth a heck of a lot more than that. You know, I've had people look at it and say, geez, you built yourself a heck of a fine building there, and people walk by and say, oh, how artistically nice that is. It's a beautiful addition to the neighborhood. Problem is, nobody wants to live there, or very few people want to live there. And at the end of the day, a place is worth what somebody is willing to put in and pay for it to live there. And like I say, if I could have gotten 233 for it, I would have been a happy camper. But the fact is that we couldn't even sell it to begin with at that price. And when it finally did sell, and possession took place here about 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, it was for 185.5. So given all that, I find it somewhat difficult to, I just don't think it's worth the 233 from a valuation basis. Wrap up. I think there are some very significant differences in neighborhoods. Wolseley is much more attractive than Daniel Mac St. Matthews. That does have a factor. The fact that the difference in the mix of housing, rentals to ownership, has a big difference in it. And, the challenge that's in that area is, has had a significant effect on the sale and the marketing of it. So essentially that's it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Westphal. Mr. Westphal, Ms. Wright, if you bear with me 1 second, please. I'm gonna ask you a question here just for some clarification. So are you currently the owner of this property? This unit?
I just sold it and possession took place on the 25th
Of
September.
September, okay.
It was actually October 15th was the original possession date on sale. And then the client wanted to have it earlier.
Okay.
And I have also been charged taxes and had on this valuation. I paid 2 years worth of taxes.
Yes.
On this valuation.
Okay, so I'm just gonna get a clear picture here, Ms. Wright, if you bear with me, please. So could I ask the assessor the effective date of the supplementary assessment for the building being added to the roll?
Let's see here.
I guess there's a land value probably, but completed subject.
Sorry, I don't believe I have the effective date that it was actually added to the roll.
Okay. Mr. Westphal, would you know when you received a supplementary assessment reflecting the completion of the dwelling?
It would have been in 2019.
Would have been right at the end of 2019 or the very first weeks of 20, but it would have been right near the end there. It was the first, and that was for the entire 2019. I was kind of surprised when I got it at that point.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at. When was the effective date of that? Of going backwards, can you remember the bill?
They charged, I was charged taxes on the entire year for 2019.
Yeah, but was that for the land portion only, or for?
That was for unit 1 as a completed unit, because on my, just trying to see if I brought my tax bill with me here, or just the assessment one. It was about $2,600 for 1 year for 2019 and about $2,900 some dollars for 2020. Because the two bills together that I had to pay prior to turning it over to the new owners was in the vicinity of $5,600. I'd actually gone to appeal the original valuation assessment, and then COVID hit and everything got delayed. And then it got restarted, but in the middle of all that, I missed the hearing, and I've still got a request before the municipal board to appeal that one that I missed because of COVID and all this other kind of stuff.
Okay. Kara, I'm going to take a recess here, and we're going to discuss a technical issue here regarding the appeal, okay? So, Mr. Westphal, I'm going to ask you or anybody in the audience, we're going to go. Okay, thank you. I will now call the hearing back to order. In regards to the appeal, we were just dealing with 285 Beverly Street, unit number 1. During discussions, or pardon me, presentation of the appellant's information, it was revealed that the appellant does not own the property now, so the appeal will not go forward, and the appellant that filed the appeal will be filing a withdrawal. That closes 285 Beverly Street, unit number 1. And I believe, Ms. Wright, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think everything else is being dealt with on the docket.
It has, yes.
Yeah, okay, so that will end our hearing today. Thank you very much for both parties appearing.
Thank you.
The refit center.
I do.